My name is Nathan Carter. I'm 36 years old. I own a chain of small but successful artisan coffee shops, and I have a serious problem with my family. You see, when it comes to money, my money, they've always believed it belonged to them just as much as it did to me. Maybe more, especially when it came to my brother Mason. You might think I'm exaggerating, but let me tell you what happened when my parents decided to gift Mason $92,000 for his first home, while telling me I was simply too ambitious to deserve any help. It all started one ordinary Wednesday afternoon. I had just finished a staff meeting at one of my cafes and was finally pouring myself a coffee when my phone buzzed insistently on the counter. Dad's name lit up the screen, and my gut twisted instinctively. Against better judgment, I answered. His voice practically dripped with pride. "Nate, big news. Your mother and I just helped Mason with the down payment for his new place. 92 grand. Isn't that incredible?" I gripped my mug tighter, plastering a fake smile onto my face even though he couldn't see it. "Wow, Dad, that's great." His laugh echoed through the phone. "We knew you'd be happy for him. It's not like you needed anything, right? What with your alternative career path and all." My alternative career? Like building 3 bustling coffee shops from nothing? Like covering their unexpected medical bills 2 winters ago? Like paying off their second mortgage when Dad lost his second job at the manufacturing plant? But sure, let's call it alternative. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, staring at the sunlight slanting across the floorboards as Dad rambled on about Mason's new place. A 2-story townhome in an up-and-coming neighborhood, perfect for when he finally decided to start a family. He even threw in a subtle hint about a nice single woman from their church, almost as if I should take notes. Half listening, I opened my laptop, and just as I expected, there it was. 3 fresh security alerts from my banking app. Unauthorized login attempts. 3 of them. I didn't even need to guess who. "Dad," I interrupted. "I've got a distributor meeting in 10 minutes. Gotta run." "Still chasing those business dreams, huh?" He chuckled, patronizing. "Son, you know success doesn't hug you goodnight or bring you soup when you're sick." I bit back the first 1,000 angry words that came to mind and hung up after a quick goodbye. The moment the call ended, I fired off a message to Jordan, my college roommate turned business partner, who already knew the messy history with my family. "They found out. It's happening." His reply came immediately. "Finally." "You good?" Was I good? I wasn't sure. I looked at my reflection in the shiny coffee machine. Brown eyes tired but steady. A face weathered more by emotional battles than years. I was 36, successful, independent, and still dreading every phone call from my own parents. Another buzz. Mom, then Mason, then Dad again. I muted my phone and opened my inbox. Sitting there was a message from Crystal, my lawyer. All accounts transferred. All joint accesses disabled. They can't touch a penny now. I should have felt guilty, right? That's what a good son feels when he cuts off financial access to the people who raised him. But honestly, I didn't feel guilt. I felt tired and free. Another text from Jordan. "Want me to swing by? Bourbon and bad TV cure all." I smiled. "Rain check. First, you need to see this." I opened an old file on my laptop, one I had been updating for nearly a decade. A spreadsheet titled, "Family Expenses." Every dollar I had loaned them. Every emergency I had saved them from. Every guilt trip that ended with my bank account lighter. The total stared back at me coldly. $427,315. Even now, it didn't seem real. My phone rang again. Mason this time. I picked up, morbidly curious. "Nate, what the hell did you do?" he blurted out before I could even say hello. "Mom's a wreck. Dad's freaking out. The family account is empty." "Not empty," I said calmly. "Closed." "You don't understand," he sputtered. "I need that money. If something goes wrong with the house closing, I'm screwed." "You mean you need my money?" I corrected. "There's a difference. You're being selfish," he growled. "You always thought you were better than us." "No," I said, my voice steely. "I was just convenient." The doorbell rang sharply. I pulled up the security feed, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and Mason standing at my doorstep like the world had ended. Dad holding a manila envelope. "I have to go," I said to Mason. "Good luck with the house." I ended the call before he could reply. Another buzz. This time from a number I didn't recognize. The message was short, but intriguing. Heard what you did. Smart move. Call me. Darren. Darren was my cousin, the family exile. I hadn't spoken to him since he dared question Grandpa's trust distribution and was labeled greedy and unstable. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. I ignored it, watching them grow more frantic on my screen. Eventually they left. Defeated, Dad slipped the manila envelope under my door. I didn't even bother to pick it up. I already knew it was filled with guilt. I sat back down, sipped my now cold coffee, and opened my calendar. In exactly 29 days, Mason's first mortgage payment would be due. In 51 days, Dad's credit card bill. In 73 days, Mom's healthcare deductible. They'd figure it out, just like I had. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of notifications. Missed calls, voicemails, text messages, all from family members. It was like a digital siege. Dad had left a dozen messages, growing angrier with each one. Mom's texts were classic emotional blackmail. We raised you better than this. Family always supports each other. Mason's in a tough spot, and you're abandoning him. I scrolled through them while drinking my coffee, unmoved. Once upon a time, those messages would have devastated me. Once upon a time, I would have grabbed my wallet, canceled my plans, and fixed everything. Not anymore. Around noon, Jordan showed up with takeout and an extra-large coffee, grinning like a proud big brother. "So how does it feel being a free man?" he asked, tossing a greasy bag onto my counter. I laughed. Honestly, a little like standing at the edge of a cliff. It's terrifying, but thrilling. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the way real friends do, without the pressure of filling the space. After we finished, I opened my laptop and pulled up something I hadn't shown anyone until that moment. My full, family, financial timeline. Every dime I had given them, tracked against my personal milestones, missed vacations, delayed expansion plans for my businesses, the dream condo I walked away from because I had to cover another emergency. Jordan's jaw tightened as he scrolled. "They took $500,000 from you," he muttered, "and made you feel guilty for it." "Closer to $430K, I said. "But yeah, pretty much. And they're still expecting you to save Mason's ass now?" I nodded. Jordan shook his head, exhaling sharply. "You know what the craziest part is? They actually believe they're entitled to your success." I leaned back, arms crossed, feeling the weight of his words settle around me. Entitled. That was the perfect word for it. My parents, my brother, they all acted like my victories were communal, but my struggles were private. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Darren. "If you're serious about getting free, you'll want to hear what I know." I hesitated. Darren was a wild card. After he fought back against the family years ago, he was painted as unstable, selfish, a troublemaker. Everything I had been accused of now. But maybe, just maybe, he had answers I didn't even know I needed. I texted him back. "I'm listening." We arranged to meet at a diner on the outskirts of town. I drove there feeling a strange combination of anger and hope bubbling under my skin. Maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe someone else understood exactly what it felt like to be chewed up and spit out by people who claimed to love you. Darren looked rougher than I remembered. Worn leather jacket, scruffy beard. But when he smiled, it was genuine. We shook hands awkwardly and slid into a booth. After ordering coffee, he got straight to the point. "You know about the trust, right?" he asked. I frowned. "You mean Grandpa's trust fund?" He nodded. "It was meant to be split between all the grandkids, equally." "Yeah," I said slowly. "I heard that, but after everything I figured it was long gone." "Because they made it disappear," Darren said, his voice low and furious. "Your parents, my parents, they liquidated it quietly behind our backs. Yours disappeared into emergency loans, mine into medical expenses. Funny how there was never any paperwork." My stomach twisted. "Are you serious?" He pulled out a flash drive and slid it across the table. Every withdrawal, every misused fund, every forged signature. Took me years to piece it together. "Yours is in there too." I stared at the small plastic drive like it was radioactive. "Why are you giving me this?" Darren's eyes softened slightly. "Because you finally did what I couldn't. You said no. You cut them off. And because you deserve to know the truth." We talked for hours, comparing timelines, filling in blanks. It was worse than I ever imagined. Not only had my parents leaned on me financially for years, They had stolen from me before I was even old enough to realize it. Driving home that night, my mind raced. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I had been manipulated, exploited, and lied to by the very people who claimed they loved me unconditionally. The next morning, I woke up to yet another voicemail from Dad. This one was different, though. His voice was quieter, almost calculating. "Nate, son, we're coming over tonight. We need to settle this face to face. Bring your paperwork, let's clear the air." Translation: let's make sure you don't have any proof before you expose us. I sat at the kitchen table, flipping the flash drive between my fingers. Crystal, my lawyer, was already scheduled to come by that evening to review everything with me. I texted her quickly. "Family trying to ambush tonight. Can you make it early?" Her reply was instant. "On my way. Don't meet them alone." I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. This was it. Tonight wasn't about confrontation, it was about closure, about holding them accountable, about finally standing up without flinching. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the scared kid desperate for approval. I was a man who had built something real, something solid, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me again. Not for family, not for anyone. By the time Crystal arrived, the tension inside me had built into something almost electric. She walked in wearing a navy blue suit, a leather case tucked under her arm, and an expression that meant business. "You ready for this?" she asked, as she sat up at the dining room table. I nodded, sliding Darren's flash drive across to her. While Crystal worked through the files, I checked the security cameras on my laptop. My parents' car was already parked down the street, too early for someone just dropping by to talk. They were planning something, no doubt about it. Mason's car pulled up behind them, engine still running. He was pacing the sidewalk, his movements jerky and nervous. "They're stalling," Crystal said, barely glancing up. "Buying time, hoping you'll panic." "I'm not panicking," I said, even though my hands itched to do something, anything. Crystal smiled thinly. "Good. Stay that way." The clock ticked slowly towards 7. I reviewed the documents again. Records of my financial support, screenshots of the unauthorized withdrawal attempts, a timeline connecting the missing trust fund to my parents' transactions. We weren't just throwing accusations. We had receipts. At exactly 7 sharp, the doorbell rang. I watched through the camera as Dad straightened his jacket and Mom smoothed her blouse. Mason hung back, shifting awkwardly from foot to foot. I buzzed them in. When they entered, their eyes immediately darted to Crystal, who stood beside me like a quiet force of nature. Mom's face paled. Dad's mouth tightened. "Nathan," Dad started, voice low and steady. "What's all this? Lawyers? Paperwork?" I motioned to the seats across from me. "Have a seat. We have a lot to go over." They sat stiffly. Mason plopped into the chair like he was auditioning for Most Uncomfortable Human of the Year. "We're here to solve this family matter privately," Dad said, shooting a pointed look at Crystal. "No need to involve outsiders." Crystal gave a polite but icy smile. "I'm only here to ensure that Mr. Carter's interests are protected. Proceed." I took a deep breath and began, laying out the evidence piece by piece. The loans, the unreturned payments, the pressure, the broken promises, the secret liquidation of the trust. At first, Mom tried crying, soft, hiccuping sobs designed to make me feel like a monster. When that didn't work, she moved on to guilt. "We did everything for this family, Nathan. Everything we had went into giving you and Mason the best." I didn't flinch. "Everything except honesty," I said. Dad shifted tactics, trying anger. "This is outrageous. You're twisting things. Family money is for family needs." Crystal leaned forward. "Including forging signatures on property sales?" She slid a printed email chain across the table, Darren's smoking gun. Dad's face went red. Mom looked ready to faint. Mason finally spoke up, his voice cracking. "I didn't know about any of that. I just needed a place to live. I thought Nate would help." "You thought wrong," I said calmly. "For once, you're going to have to figure it out on your own." There was a long silence. Heavy. Final. "Here's what's going to happen," Crystal said briskly. "You're going to sign acknowledgement of debt for the amounts misappropriated. You're going to arrange restitution where appropriate. And you're going to cease any further attempts to contact Nathan for financial support." Dad scoffed. "And if we don't?" "Then," Crystal said smoothly, "we proceed to criminal charges for fraud, theft, and financial abuse. Your choice." For a moment, I genuinely thought Dad was going to flip the table. But Mom touched his hand, her face a twisted mask of fear and regret. She knew. She had always known that pushing me this far meant risking everything. One by one, with shaking hands, they signed. When it was over, they stood up, brittle and broken. As they left, Mom turned at the door, tears streaming. "Will you ever forgive us, Nathan?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized the woman standing there wasn't the mother I had idealized as a boy. She was just a person, flawed, scared, selfish. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I said quietly. "You did that all on your own." The door closed behind them with a soft click, and for the first time in my life, the house felt peaceful. Mine. Jordan texted a few minutes later. "How'd it go?" "Done," I typed back. "They finally know I'm not their safety net anymore." There was one last thing to do. I opened Reddit, heart pounding, and started to type. "Hi everyone, my name's Nathan. For over a decade, I let my family bleed me dry in the name of loyalty. Today, I finally stopped. I posted it. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. The post exploded faster than I could have imagined. Within an hour, it had hundreds of comments. By the next morning, thousands. Stories poured in from people just like me. Sons, daughters, cousins, even old friends, who had been used, guilt-tripped, and drained by the very families they loved most. Some had lost homes. Others had given up college dreams. A few had lost entire decades trying to keep sinking ships afloat. Reading their stories was like holding a mirror to my own life. Painful, but weirdly healing. Jordan came over later that day, a six-pack in one hand, his phone in the other. "Dude, you're going viral," he said, tossing me a beer. "You're a damn legend." I chuckled dryly. Not exactly how I pictured becoming famous. He sat down across from me, scrolling through the comments. "Listen to this one. My parents made me sell my car to cover my brother's failed restaurant venture. I was 19. Another, I delayed buying a house for years because I kept covering my mom's gambling debts." He looked up, his face serious. "You're not alone, Nate. You never were." Hearing that, really hearing it, was like taking a deep breath after years underwater. Meanwhile, my phone continued to buzz like a hornet's nest. Missed calls from Mom, cryptic texts from Dad, passive-aggressive Bible quotes posted on Facebook. Everything from honor thy father and mother to veiled threats about ungrateful children facing ruin. Mason even went live on social media, his voice trembling with faux sincerity, spinning a tale about toxic success and how money changes people. Jordan nearly fell off the couch laughing. "He's seriously trying to make himself the victim?" "He always has," I said simply. By that evening, I knew things were about to escalate. Sure enough, another text from Darren popped up. "Heads up, they're calling the extended family, trying to smear you. Same old tactics, stay strong." I wasn't surprised. If there was one thing my family hated more than losing money, it was losing control. The next morning I met Crystal and Darren at my office. We needed a game plan, not just for protecting myself legally, but for deciding what came next. Darren leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You know what they're gonna do, right? They'll try to twist it, make it seem like you're unstable, greedy, out of control." "Let them," Crystal said coolly. "We have documentation for everything. They can scream into the void all they want." I nodded. I'm not fighting for their approval anymore. And I wasn't. That part of me, the scared kid desperate to be good enough, had burned away the night they sat at my table and lied to my face. Later that afternoon, I posted an update online. "When you finally say no to being your family's bank, be prepared. They'll call you selfish. They'll call you ungrateful. Let them. Freedom has a price, but it's worth every cent." The response was overwhelming. Messages of support, stories of survival, quiet thank yous from people who had never dared speak out loud what they felt in their hearts. One message stood out. A woman named Tasha who wrote, "Reading your story gave me the courage to finally close the account my brother has been draining for years. Today, I chose myself." I stared at her words for a long time, a lump in my throat. If nothing else, maybe my pain wasn't wasted. Maybe it could be a lifeline for someone else. The final confrontation came 2 days later. Dad showed up at my office without warning, pounding on the glass door. I stayed seated behind my desk, calm and composed as Crystal opened the door and ushered him inside. He looked terrible, haggard, angry, a shell of the confident man who used to lecture me about loyalty and honor. "Nathan," he barked, slamming a file down on my desk. "This ends now." I didn't even glance at the folder. "You're right, it does. You're tearing this family apart," he growled. "Over what? Money?" "No," I said quietly. "Over truth." He scoffed, pacing the room. "You think you're better than us?" "I think," I said, standing up slowly, "that I'm tired of sacrificing my future to fix mistakes I didn't make." He stared at me, jaw twitching. "You can threaten," I continued. "You can gossip. You can cry to whoever will listen. But I'm done playing this game, and you can't bully me back into submission." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Dad picked up the folder and stormed out without another word. I sat back down, feeling a peace I hadn't felt in years. Jordan texted me half an hour later. He posted a rant online, blaming you for breaking the family. "Good," I replied. "Let him." Because for the first time, I wasn't carrying their shame anymore. The next week passed in a strange kind of stillness. Not quiet, exactly. The fallout was everywhere. Family members were taking sides. Facebook was a battleground, and Mason had posted no fewer than 4 separate sob stories begging for sympathy. And yet, inside me there was a silence that felt almost holy. The storm was raging, but it wasn't inside me anymore. Instead of obsessing over the drama, I focused on my life, my real life. I expanded the online store for my coffee brand, hired 2 new managers, and finally scheduled a vacation for the first time in 3 years. I wasn't wasting any more time waiting for permission to be happy. One afternoon, while packing orders with Jordan, I got a message from Darren. "You might want to check the county clerk's site." Confused, I logged on and searched my parents' property records. My stomach twisted when I saw it. They had listed their house for sale. Fast. Cheap. "They're trying to cover restitution," Crystal said when I called her, unsurprised. Better to lose the house quietly than face formal fraud charges publicly. I thought I would feel vindicated seeing it. I didn't. I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that they chose pride over honesty. Sad that they cared more about appearances than their own son's trust. Later that night, Darren and I met at a quiet bar on the edge of town. It was dark and half empty, the kind of place you went when you didn't want to be seen. We grabbed beers and found a booth in the back. For a while, we just sat there, nursing our drinks in silence. Finally, Darren broke it. "You know," he said, swirling his beer, "they're never going to apologize." "I know," I said. "I'm not waiting for it." "Good," he said, "because the apology you deserve isn't coming from them. It's coming from you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, voice low and serious. "You owe yourself an apology for every time you put them first, for every dream you put on hold, for every time you thought you weren't enough unless you were saving someone else." His words hit harder than I expected. I sat back, staring into the condensation dripping down my glass. He was right. I had spent most of my adult life waiting for someone to tell me I was allowed to prioritize myself, waiting for permission that was never going to come. It had to come from me. That night I went home and wrote a letter. Not to them, to myself. I wrote about all the things I forgave myself for. Staying too long, giving too much, believing too hard. And then I wrote about all the things I promised myself. To build a life based on respect, not obligation. To choose relationships that fed my spirit, not drained it. To remember that love without respect isn't love at all. It's control. When I finished, I folded the letter and tucked it into my wallet. A reminder. A declaration. The next morning, I woke up to another wave of texts. Family group chats buzzing with arguments, screenshots, accusations. Mom had posted yet another Bible verse online, this one about prodigal sons and forgiveness. Mason had posted an angry story about betrayal and loneliness. I didn't even bother reading them. Instead, I grabbed my keys, got into my car, and drove to the mountains. No phone, no laptop, no noise, just me. And for the first time in years, it was enough. When I came back down 3 days later, tan, dirty, and smiling for real, I found a message waiting for me from Tasha, the woman who had commented on my post weeks ago. She had closed her abusive family account. She had moved into her first solo apartment. She had started a small business baking custom cakes. And she thanked me, over and over. I stared at her message, my chest tight, because helping myself had helped someone else too. Freedom, I realized wasn't just personal. It was contagious. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something bigger than I had ever dreamed. Weeks passed, and slowly, the dust began to settle. I wasn't naive. I knew certain wounds wouldn't heal. Some relationships wouldn't be repaired. Maybe some were never meant to be. But as I looked around at my life, at the freedom I had fought so hard to reclaim, I knew without a shred of doubt that I had made the right decision. Freedom wasn't about cutting people off. It was about setting boundaries so you didn't have to cut yourself off from who you truly were. In the months that followed, my business flourished like never before. I opened a fourth coffee shop. I took the long overdue vacation to Portugal I had dreamed about for years. I bought a small cabin near the lake, not as a status symbol, but as a sanctuary for myself, a reminder that I could build something just for me. Darren and I stayed in touch. So did Tasha. In fact, a whole network quietly began to form. People from all over who had found themselves suffocating under the weight of family expectations and who had finally chosen freedom. We shared resources. We celebrated milestones. We mourned old lives we had outgrown. We weren't just survivors. We were builders of new legacies. One night, sitting on the back porch of my cabin, staring up at the endless stars, I pulled out my phone and opened the Reddit app again. I scrolled through the comments on my latest update. Stories from teachers, paramedics, small business owners, artists, all people who had fought their own wars against manipulation, disguised as family love. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone at all. I smiled to myself, feeling the cool night breeze tug gently at my shirt, and realized something simple but life-changing. Family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about respect. It's about standing up even when your voice shakes. It's about becoming the person you needed when you were younger. And I had become that person. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was free. And that, my friends, is the story of how I, Nathan Carter, 36 years old, stubborn entrepreneur, lifelong fixer, finally stopped being everyone else's plan B and chose to be my own plan A. Before you go, I just want to say something from the heart. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever felt trapped, obligated, or guilty for simply wanting to live your own life, you are not alone, and you deserve better. If you felt something watching this video, if it made you think about your own journey, please hit that subscribe button. Not because it's what YouTubers say, but because here we're building a community of people who are done with guilt and ready for growth. Drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever gone through something similar? What part of my story hit you the hardest? And most importantly, what have you learned from your experiences? We want to hear you. We want to support you. We want to celebrate your wins no matter how small they might seem. So let's talk. Let's grow. Thank you for being here. You're stronger than you think. I'll see you in the next one.